Okay, good morning. Let the record reflect this is September 29th, 2020, and the Board of Building Appeals is convened to consider what is the second case on our docket, but scheduled on a cattle call basis at 8:30. This is a Columbus matter, and this is case number 20-0088. Deals with the premises located at 433 West Broad Street, located in Columbus, and Columbus Building Authority's adjudication number is noted on the docket. This is always difficult on these virtual hearings, but one by one, if those that are here attending on behalf of the appellant, if you would, in consecutive order to the extent you can, identify yourself, spell your last name for the record, and the capacity by which you're here on behalf of the appellant.
Jessica Shuren, Jessica, last name Shuren, Schueren, and I am the developer owner. Okay.
Very good. And then do you have Mr. Sasso and Mr. Carruthers and Mr. Welker present?
Mr. Sasso will not be joining. I think Mr. Welker might hop on late. He likely won't speak. Oh, you're on? Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'm on. Mr. Welker's on. What about Mr. Carruthers?
Hey, I dialed in. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. Are you Mr. Carruthers?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Devin Carruthers. Do you need me to spell it?
Yes, please.
Devin, and then Carruthers is Carothers, and I'm with Kaufman Development as well.
Okay. Mr. Suriano?
Yes, this is Michael Suriano, Michael, Suriano, Suriano, and with MBBJ Architects.
And then Tracy Perry?
She's having some technical difficulties at the moment.
Okay, but you indicated that Jessica was going to present. Is that my understanding?
Yes, that's correct. And we also have Amy Murdoch with us as well.
Okay, very good. Amy, would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Amy, you're on mute.
Thank you. Amy Murdoch, A-M-Y, last name Murdoch, M-U-R-D-O-C-K, fire protection engineer for the project.
Okay, very good. And Mr. Ghosh?
Ahmed Ghosh, G-H-O-S-H, City of Columbus.
And Chief Sanders?
Scott Sanders, S-A-N-D-E-R-S, Battalion Chief.
Okay, very good. If everyone would stand, raise your right hand. Nick, our court stenographer, will administer an oath.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, so either Jessica or Amy, you have the floor. Probably identify yourself just so we keep a record of who's speaking, at least in the beginning until there's voice recognition. But either Jessica or Amy, you have the floor right now.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jessica Shuren with Kaufman Development. Thank you for your time this morning. The Gravity Phase 2 project is a mixed-use development in the Franklinton neighborhood of Columbus. The project is inclusive of a 12-story residential tower, 180,000 square foot office building, an 890 cell parking garage, a liner townhouse building, and a mid-rise residential building. The project seeking review is our 12-story tower with market rate apartments, amenity space, and 4 rent commercial space on level 1. The parking garage is around 890 stalls. The parking garage will be available to the public as well as all project residents and tenants. The City of Columbus is supportive of the garage, and with coordinated efforts with the city, 200 stalls will be available to the public to serve the adjacent area. The garage sits squarely in the West Broad Street corridor, a key density corridor for future development in Central Ohio, according to the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. Having this garage is integral to the future development in Central Ohio. Additionally, 60 stalls within the garage are needed to support an affordable housing project across the street from the site. The site is very constricted, and we're providing the large parking garage adjacent to the residential tower to support the various functions on the site and to the public, as previously mentioned. The south side of the tower is immediately adjacent to the garage, and it's important to the financial stability of the project that we have all units with windows and balconies over the garage. The code for this type of scenario does not necessarily provide a clear definition for the kind of development the city and region are looking to see. We have worked hand in hand with the City of Columbus building and fire departments over many months to come up with an acceptable solution. We're fortunate to have a sophisticated building department in Columbus, and what you'll be seeing is not from our original design, but it is the solution our teams and the building department team have agreed upon. So I will now hand it over to Amy from CCI to go into more detail.
Okay.
Thank you, Jessica. Amy Murdoch with CCI speaking. I'm going to share my desktop. So the basic summary, as Jessica just discussed, we have a residential tower that extends beyond an adjacent parking garage. The basic summary of the request today is that we are 2 buildings on the same lot being regulated as separate buildings. We have 2 inches of fire separation distance for each building for about a total of 4 inches, give or take, in between the buildings. We've constructed 2 2-hour fire rated exterior walls, so back-to-back fire rated exterior walls. We are requesting to comply with the vertical opening provisions of the code by providing a 2-hour rating at the roof of the parking garage. Since the code does not really address an occupied roof condition in a vertical exposure condition, the design team has incorporated a 2-hour fire barrier that extends from the roof of the parking garage up a distance of 15 feet. Further to this, we have installed an automatic dry standpipe system in the garage. That is the basic summary of the request today. So specific to the adjudication summary, as outlined by Mr. Ghosh, Ohio Building Code Section 503.1.2 for buildings on the same lot, he believed would not allow for the proposed condition. The second point in the adjudication letter is that the vertical exposure provisions do not consider a large parking level with cars on the roof of the lower building. So these were the 2 points that we're here to discuss today. The adjudication letter states the provisions of this code applicable to the aggregate building shall be applied to each building. This was the part of the code section that Mr. Ghosh was focusing on. So here's our code text for buildings on the same lot. 2 or more buildings on the same lot shall be regulated as separate buildings, or is the key word here, shall be considered as portions of one building where the building height, number of stories, and the aggregate building area of the buildings, plural, are within the limitations specified in 504 and 506. The provisions of this code applicable to the aggregate building, again, keyword of aggregate building, shall be applicable to each building. Our design team believes that we are the first part of this sentence. We are 2 buildings on the same lot regulated as separate buildings. We are stopping there. Our baseline is that we have 2 buildings, 2 exterior walls, properly protecting the vertical exposure between 2 buildings. We do not believe that the ending sentence, which says the provisions of the code shall be applicable to the aggregate building, is correct for our statement, because again, we are 2 separate buildings with fire-rated exterior walls between the 2 buildings. We do not have an aggregate building area. So with going to the fire-rated exterior wall provisions, you would go to table 602. So in table 602, we have less than 5 feet between our buildings. code would require 1 hour rated exterior walls. Our residential building being type 1B downgraded to 2A. Our open parking garage is a type 1B structure. So all construction types of an R and an A building, because we do have some assembly uses associated with the residential, and the S2 parking garage would be a 1 hour rated exterior wall. Our design team is providing a 2 hour fire rated exterior wall back to back. Looking at the figure from the International Building Code, again showing this is our parking garage. Granted, our residential is a little bit bigger than the parking garage, but using their figure, again, our fire separation distance is 0 between the two. We are buildings on the same lot. We're assuming a line down the center. Therefore, we fire rated the exterior wall from levels 1 to 4. Again, going back up to this picture, 2 2-hour exterior walls up to the floor slab of level 5. And then we have to work through the vertical exposure issues. So
Okay. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
For the exterior wall openings, we're following the table 705.8 provisions. When we're 0 less than 3, we have no openings. We are fully a 2 hour solid wall for those lower floors. At the point at which vertical exposure happens, where we have a roof at the lower, which is the parking garage, and the exterior wall of the residential goes beyond, we acknowledge that the code probably was never anticipating an occupied roof in these situations. So we have a 2 hour roof for the garage in lieu of what the code says for exception 1 to allow for a 1 hour. We have stated no parking within 20 feet of the adjacent residential building. And we have put a 2 hour wall on top of the parking garage for a distance of 15 feet vertically above the roof of the garage. And that was provided twofold. The fire department was concerned about anything that could be put in this space between the two buildings. So that's where the wall came in. And the other concern was potential of a vehicle that would be parked, if it was parked adjacent to the residential building, would that fire create problems for balconies or the residential doors opening to the balconies? So the design team has pushed, let me go to, sorry, this slide. So the proposed protection at the roof is our 2 hour floor slab, 2 hour wall. Here's the floor plan of it at the top level of the garage. There is no parking, no nothing in this 20-foot span. There's a door for maintenance purposes, and it's a 2 hour door within our 2 hour wall. The closest parking spot is at 21 feet from that 20 feet. So we actually have parking about 40 feet away from the exterior wall of the residential building. And those provisions, again, using the International Building Code commentary, just to give everyone kind of a nice view of what the code commentary would talk about for vertical exposure between two buildings. Again, consider our lower building, our taller building. We don't have 30 feet, we have 4 inches, so we're significantly closer. And because of the request for the parking garage at that roof level, again, with the 2 hour slab and the 2 hour wall separating the two. So again, just a summary of the site plan, parking garage, just so you can see the vastness, residential tower. And again, the protection between the vehicle parked car here with the residential tower 40 feet away. And that is the basic summary of the request at hand. Jessica and Mike, is there anything else that I missed in explaining our situation?
No, thank you, Amy.
No, thank you. Thank you, Amy.
Okay, well, this will be the time, I think, for questions from members of the board. Ms. Murdoch and or Ms. Shuren.
Yes, this is Chip Welch. I had one question. Is there any type of this void space between the residential tower and the 15-foot wall? Is there any type of roof covering or fencing or netting, or so that people can't throw trash and combustibles collect in that that void space?
That's a very good question. Through discussions with the fire marshal, that is why we added the doors for maintenance access to, so that as part of the development and security and cleaning and maintenance, people can get up here to pick up any of that. And the inclusion of the automatic dry standpipe system in lieu of a manual, so that should the fire department have any issues, the system can be at the ready prior to the time that it would take if it was a manual system. Does that answer your question?
So I think so. So,
Okay.
so basically there's no type of covering over that. It's just open space.
Correct. There's no net. So, could a person from a balcony throw trash onto here? Yes. The door for maintenance allows people to get there. Mike, Jessica, do we have any security cameras in this area? I don't recall.
We haven't added any, but we'll have security cameras elsewhere on site. So, if we wanted to add one, we could. Otherwise, we might already have a view of that angle, depending on where the rest of our cameras are on site.
And how are the balconies, how are they constructed, or what are they constructed of? What type of materials?
Mike, do you want to take that one? I can make a good guess based on last time I looked at the drawings.
Yeah, they are, excuse me, precast concrete balconies.
Okay.
With guardrails, I'm assuming to be metal guardrails.
That's correct.
I'm guessing we're not going PVC or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? The appellant.
Yeah, this is Paul Began. Part of what makes this work a little bit are some of these easements and shared use agreements. Maybe I missed it, but can you point me to that in the documentation that you'd sent out to us?
I believe the easement agreements were mentioned and stated to be provided upon request. Jessica, do we have those in place that we could get those in their hand?
Yes, we have a draft version we could get in your hand that we're finalizing.
I'm flipping through up on the screen right now. It did say that there was an attached draft legal agreement, so I'm wondering if it was on the back end of the document, but I believe these are all just plans.
Hey, Amy, it's Devin. I believe we did provide that at least to the city at some point.
Okay.
We have essentially a condo document that applies to that throughout the project that won't get actually physically recorded to the physical property until we're complete with our lot splits and all the parcel lines are in place. So we have it, and it's been blessed by everyone, I'll say. It just hasn't been recorded yet until the rest of that process gets completed. And we have it's a no build easement, I believe, for what is the dimension on that? 40 feet from to the south from the mixed use facade. It's Exhibit E, if you have anything labeled Exhibit E in there, Amy.
I believe here's where we had it within the document, that we would have the air rates for 40 feet for any future building that may happen above that garage.
Okay, and the part of the reason that I'm asking is, I mean, these are kind of central to it, right? Hey, here's what we promised to do, but we don't know what those documents look like. Not saying that you won't do it. I'll kind of leave it to my other board members to maybe give their opinion on this as well too. We've had several cases where, okay, a variance is conditioned upon deed restrictions being, sent into the Franklin County Recorder and executed copy being sent to us. However, generally we have the ability to review those deed restrictions as part of this case because they're central to what you're telling us you're planning to do. So That's why I was asking. I saw in the documents, it said, hey, it's attached, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So maybe you didn't provide it, so.
I'm looking through my emails now. Jessica or Devin, do you have something that can be shared? Jessica, do you have something that you can share on the screen?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Devin.
Jess, I'm not able to pull up my screen right now. I don't think, because I was having trouble with the app. But I can point you to the direction on our file system if that's helpful to the board.
I believe I have them. I can pull them up if you bear with us for a moment.
I will stop sharing my screen as I still look through my emails.
Well, I mean, let me ask the other board members. It's going to be very difficult for me to read on the screen, to comprehend it and understand what's going on, even if I could see it on the screen. Again, I'll leave it to my other board members. Obviously, it's something that we need. I would like to see, almost to the point of, hey, generally agree with the direction you're going. Maybe we continue this case until we can get those documents and review them.
Let me ask Ms. Shuren this. If the other board members concurred with Mr. Began and we set you down on October 13th, how much of a time hardship would that be for you?
I think that would be fine. It's, 2 weeks at this point, so that would be okay for us.
I don't want to jump the gun here, but Susan, if we headed that direction, would we be able to accommodate the Kaufman group for the 13th?
I can, and the time would be at 10 a.m.
Okay.
All right. Well, let me. That we haven't decided that yet. Let's, gentlemen of the board, what are your thoughts?
I guess just for the benefit of the appellant to keep things moving, and so they don't have to coordinate schedules. I mean, I'd like to hear from the city and their opinion on this modification, and if it's just a matter of one representative from the city and the appellant coming back in October to say, okay, we've reviewed the deed restrictions, we're good, and the substance of the variance is fine, then we don't have to, no offense to Ms. Murdoch, but they don't have to drag everybody back into this hearing for what's perfunctory.
Right. I contemplated, at least completing most of the evidentiary portion.
Right.
Neil, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. We should hear from the city. But I also agree with Paul's position too, that it should be continued until we get the proper documentation.
All right, and then Brad.
Yeah, I'm on board with this. I agree.
Okay, so we'll resume the hearing and complete at least most of the hearing, and then we'll probably kick this to the 13th and allow you to make that submission. Let me ask this: is there anything else right now from the appellant?
I would just have one question of clarification for Jessica's benefit. The document is draft. It is not final. Is that correct, Jessica? Because we would want confirmation before finalizing, correct?
That is correct.
Just wanted to make sure the board was understanding of that.
And I think that is fine if you need some additional time to prepare that and have the city review it and agree that the language in those documents is satisfactory to them. Because at the end of the day, that's what I'm concerned about, right? I mean,
sure.
All of us leave this hearing and go on and do our other things. The city's the one that has to deal with what that says. So their satisfaction is probably of primary importance. So if you do need more time before the next hearing, obviously you could let us know and we can move it to the next one beyond that if needed.
Right. And we can work on your schedule.
I don't think we'd need more time. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew it wasn't like a final document that would come to the board.
Well, I mean, it has to be final in the fact that the city has to agree that what is in that document. So if they're not willing to sign off on it and it's in that format, how could you expect us to?
Understand that. I guess and maybe I'm off on this, Jessica, but typically the owners don't sign the final agreement until a lot of the construction is done, because it's not just about this. There's other things like who's controlling the security cameras, who's going to take care of the trash, who's going to take care of, all those kind of things. So Jessica, is it going to be signed by Kaufman and whoever, like I guess the city relating to the garage? Will it be a final document?
Kevin, can you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, it will be at some point, but it won't be until we get all of our all of the parcel lines completely in place, which hasn't been completed yet. And it can't be, and on top of that, it can't be completed until all the construction loans are signed off on and all of the equity is in place and signed off on. It's kind of weird. There's a couple things that kind of tangle up in this process and that process that it won't necessarily. The final form is it being recorded with the county and attached to the property. So that may take a little bit of time.
But to Paul's point, we could absolutely have all of the code language relating to this fire and life safety matter buttoned up, approved, and final within the document. Does that make sense, Mr. Began? Okay.
I don't necessarily care about the other pieces of the agreement at this time.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Let me go. Does somebody have a question?
Yeah, sorry. This is Devin with Kaufman again. Are we going to hear from Mr. Ghosh as it relates to that? Because I believe this document has already been looked at and reviewed by the city.
Well, I was gonna ask Mr. Ghosh to present here. I just want to make sure we were done with questions from the board of the appellant. So it sounds like we are. Mr. Ghosh, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Overall, at first, I was probably the most unpopular guy with the design team, but we've come to a place where we can speak in support of this appeal. I will go back and check my emails and so forth for the air rights document, and the Columbus Fire wanted 2 doors on that 15 feet tall wall. I believe they're shown on the plan, and they wanted the doors to be wide enough so that they could carry their larger ladders to them to rescue somebody from the balconies. I believe the 2 buildings will share the fire pump, and that needs to be added to the legal agreements between the 2 buildings. And where my difficulty was with this is that the high-rise building is going to be type 2A construction, and the garage is going to be type 1B. And Section 403 does allow high-rise building construction types to be reduced. But in this kind of a configuration, I did not know, and I don't see anything in the code that says that, yes, you can reduce the construction type of one of the 2 buildings. So that was the basis for coming before the board. And, that when you reduce the construction type to type 2A, also some of the uses, like in this case, they won't be able to put any mercantile use in the high-rise building because the code wouldn't allow that. So that's why we came to you. We've come to you, and when we talk about the legal agreements, there's that fire pump issue also needed to be added there. Otherwise, overall, we've come a long way, and I thank the design team for working with us. And I believe we can. They have proposed a solution that we can support.
Very well. Before we hear from the battalion chief, are there any questions of Mr. Ghosh by members of the board? Okay, Chief.
Columbus Fire is in agreement of the proposal and of Mr. Ghosh's comments. We have no objection.
Okay. Any questions of the battalion chief by members of the board? Any questions of anyone for members of the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, if we could review just one more time, because some of the things we talked about are conditions. I think I've been following along, making sure I am, for our purposes, documenting those conditions. If we could review those one more time briefly, what those conditions are, then at least, as I think as part of this hearing, it's probably prudent for us to put out those conditions for everyone to review and agree with, at least, I know we're not going to motion today on it, but if we could have that work done prior to the next hearing, I think that would be beneficial to all the parties.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to get as much of the spade work done today as we can. Are you going to review some of those conditions on the record?
Let's just get a brief summary of them, and then I just want to verify with what I put together, and then I'll throw those up there and read into the record and let everybody review them.
Okay.
And I don't know which member of the appellant team that wants to do that.
All right. Well, they can fight over that.
I'm typing what up on the screen, what I believe is.
Do you need a minute or two?
No, I think this is it. And
Okay.
Jessica and Mike, please step in if you have anything other than this. The basic summary, I believe, still remains that we have a 2-hour firewall on the residential tower, a 2-hour, I'm sorry, not firewall, a 2-hour exterior wall on the residential tower, a 2-hour exterior wall on the parking garage, a 2-hour roof assembly on the parking garage for 20 feet, a 2-hour fire barrier for a vertical distance of 15 feet above the roof of the parking garage. No parking of vehicles within the 20-foot span between the residential tower and the 2-hour fire barrier. No parking within 20 feet of that fire barrier. A real estate agreement needs to be presented to the city and reviewed to confirm the air rights and to have the fire pump, the common fire pump, acknowledged in the real estate agreement, and that a automatic dry standpipe system is installed in the parking garage. Mike, did I miss anything?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
I think you captured, Amy. Thank you.
Okay.
That vertical wall, Amy, needs to have 2 doors wide enough for fire department access.
Absolutely.
2
Mike,
doors.
we should be able to put a pair of doors in lieu of a single door. Do you agree?
I agree. Yes.
So this door would be changed to a pair.
Would a 3'6" or 4-foot door suffice in lieu of a pair? I know fire rated double doors that are exposed to the elements outside with the closers and stuff typically don't hold up well with their latching devices and stuff. So if we could keep it to a single door, it'd be preferred from our owner end.
I guess you can answer that, Mr. Coach.
I would defer to the chief on that, actually.
Unless you say otherwise, 4-feet door will be reasonable.
Chief, is a 4-foot door okay with you?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was having trouble with mute. Yes, we'll accept that.
Okay. All right, Paul.
All right, I am throwing these together here. If you want to give me a minute, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's go off the record for just a second. That allows me to run down to my law office kitchen and get a cup of coffee. So, good time. Nick, we're off the record.
Yes, we are.
Mr. Chair, anytime you're ready.
Okay, yes, let's go back on, Nick, please.
Okay, we're on the record.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm going to put up some conditions. I'm going to read through them and have Mr. Ghosh, the chief, and the appellant's team kind of take a look at them and let me know if we've captured everything that we discussed here today.
Yeah, Mr. Ghosh and Chief Sanders, are you able to see these?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Variance is conditioned upon the following. Number one, the tower building shall be separated from the garage by a 2-hour fire resistance rated fire barrier wall from the basement levels up to 4 feet above the top of the garage roof. Number two, a no build parent air rights and parent easement shall be provided for the parked roof of the garage extending 40 feet from the exterior face of the garage to the satisfaction of the building and fire officials. An executed copy of the easement shall be filed documenting the deed requirements with the Franklin County Recorder. An executed copy shall also be provided to the Board of Building Appeals. Number three, a 15-foot tall precast concrete wall shall be provided on the roof of the garage, extending 20 feet from the face of the tower building and providing a 2-hour fire resistance rating. The space enclosed by the wall shall not be utilized for any parking or other use or occupancy except for maintenance access. A 4-foot door shall be provided to the satisfaction of the building and fire officials for access into the enclosed space. No parking shall be permitted within 20 feet of this wall with signage and floor markings to the satisfaction of the building official. This condition shall be listed as a special condition on the certificate of occupancy. Now, number four, let me scroll down here so we can get this whole one in here. Oops. Number four, the garage shall be provided with an automatic dry standpipe system to the satisfaction of the building and fire officials. The standpipe system will be supplied and powered from the tower building, including the required fire pump and associated piping. A shared use and component agreement for the use, operation, and maintenance of the standpipe system, documenting the deed requirements, shall be executed and recorded with the Franklin County Recorder. An executed copy shall also be provided to the Board of Building Appeals. Number five, the conditions herein shall be listed on the certificate of occupancy for both the tower and garage buildings. And number six, this variance is granted based on the use, construction, occupant load, square footage, and level of activity identified on the approved construction documents, including the maintenance of all building systems and any conditions required herein.
Okay, not that we're making this determination today, but Ms. Sheeran, Mr. Suriano, Ms. Murdoch, Mr. Carruthers, Mr. Ghosh, Chief Sanders, any comments or questions regarding those as framed?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
I believe the design team is proposing in item one, they're proposing two our fire barriers, one on the high-rise side, one on the garage side. And on item three, they're proposing 2 4-foot doors for fire department access. That's what the fire department wanted.
Okay.
And one comment was, my comment is, and sometimes this catches people by surprise when the construction type is reduced to type 2A. They can't have mercantile and S1 storage in the building.
Any comments from the appellant?
Mike, my question would be and Jessica, the 4-foot 2-hour on the residential tower exterior wall above the garage roof. I don't know if that is included within our design right now.
Well, I mean, I think that was part of the this discussion. I was looking at your drawings when you had your section up there, and I don't know if that's worthwhile putting up again. But we have to determine at some point where that 2-hour fire barrier stops. And so I did want to put that in, maybe as a point of discussion with Mr. Ghosh, so that he could be satisfied, hey, that 2-hour fire barrier continues up to a point that he is satisfied with, and the fire official as well.
Mike, do you have the plans in front of you that you can confirm?
Well, let me ask Mr. Ghosh. Mr. Ghosh, how far above the roof of the garage do you want the 2-hour wall separating the two buildings to extend?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Go ahead.
Mr. Began, that's a good question. The code requires 30 inches. Anything above that 3 feet will probably be reasonable. Four feet, of course, is better.
At least, Mike, I'm looking at.
You can make it 8 feet right now if you want, Mr. Ghosh.
No, they've been very accommodating, so I'm not going to make it.
No,
I'm zooming in on that figure. We did have a 42-inch parapet indicated for the 2-hour wall. I know on the garage side, on the residential tower side, it appears that we have the 2-hour wall terminating at the floor slab of level 5, which is a little bit off from the level 6 of the parking garage. So there is some verticality of a distance where that fire barrier is extending up. I just don't know if it's to the 4-foot mark that's mentioned.
yeah, I'm trying to get into the section, sorry.
And it sounds like Mr. Ghosh would be accommodating to that 42 inches. I don't think he is set on that 4-foot.
So as long as Mr. Ghosh is okay with 30 or above, I think we're okay with that.
Again, just if since your parapet goes up 42 inches, would that be adequate to you? Would that be acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. And then Mr. Ghosh had pointed out that the garage also has a 2-hour wall. I just wanted to confirm that so I can modify that condition.
Any comments?
I mean, I can confirm it, but yes, we have a 2-hour rated exterior wall on that garage side.
Okay, so both buildings have a 2-hour wall.
Correct.
Okay, so let me, I will modify that number 1 condition then.
Okay, well, if there aren't any further comments or discussion or questions regarding the proposed conditions, I think we're in a position where we can continue this matter, set it down for the 13th. If the parties can't work on that pace, we can accommodate them on a continuance basis after that, but I think we can strive for the 13th. Before I entertain a motion, before I entertain a motion to continue, is there any other comments or questions from member of the board or comments for the parties?
Mr. Chair, this is Ahmed. The item number 3 says a 4-feet door. I believe that since a Columbus fire required 2 4-feet doors, and that's what's shown on the drawings too.
Yes, Mr. Ghosh, I did note that, and I have modified that. I mean, if you want me to, I could put those conditions up again.
Not at all. I just wanted to make sure that. Thank you, Mr. Deegan.
Mr. Chair, can we go back to the declaration or the deed recording? Can I look at that language again before we conclude here?
Sure.
Whoever's controlling the screen.
Let me throw this up here. That is in two sections here, and I'll try to get them. They'll zoom out a bit so I can get them both in here. So basically for both of them, execute a copy of the easement for item number 2 shall be filed, documented the deed requirements of the Franklin County Recorder. The executed copy shall also be provided to the Board of Building Appeals. And that would also be similar to item number 4 regarding the standpipe system, the shared use and component agreement for the use, operation, and maintenance of the standpipe system. Documenting the deed requirements shall be executed and recorded with the Franklin County Recorder. An executed copy shall also be provided to the Board of Building Appeals.
Can I understand, or someone help me understand a little bit the timing of that? Because we would, in this scenario with these conditions, we would need to have that recorded before we can actually have our building permits reviewed. Is that correct assumption? Maybe Mr. Ghosh, maybe that's a question for you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, if the board grants you the appeal, I believe the board would like to see the recorded, as it's written, the board would like to see the recorded document. Now, whether that's before the appeal is granted or somewhere along the line, typically the board would want the city's law department to review it and say that, yes, they're agreeable to this document. And usually we have recorded copies of this. But as far as your building department question, it would say your building permit applications will be reviewed, and in cases we've even approved the plan approval. We've given plan approval saying that we need these documents executed within 90 days or what have you. That's a condition of plan approval. So to answer your question, no, your plan review won't be held up. We'll come to a solution of some kind.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that would, go ahead.
You know, I think generally when we have these deed requirements, yes, we want the city's law department to review and approve them. That would be before we would grant a variance. Once we grant the variance, you're going to be dealing with Mr. Ghosh, who is generally been very good at allowing a conditional permit to proceed. Final occupancy obviously would be limited on those being recorded.
Okay, that's great with us. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't going to hold up the front end of the process, because it may take a little bit of time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh.
Anything else from the city or the fire department? Anything else from the appellant?
Again, sorry, Amy Murdoch, the document that was just up, I still believe number 1 and I think it was number 3 would need to get changed. The 4-foot reference, I believe, if I misunderstood, Mr. Ghosh would be fine with a 30-inch reference, and the number 3 should be 2 4-foot doors, not a single 4-foot door.
Yes, I did modify those on mine. Again, if you'd like, we could put those up again. And I kept it at, I know Mr. Ghosh said 30 inches, but your parapet's 42, and I think that it would make the most sense.
Okay, and I would check again with Mike. I know 42 was there for the parking garage parapet because that is a parapet. The residential tower is still the exterior wall. So I just want to make sure the 42 inches allows for those openings in that, and it does. He's nodding his head. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, all right. I think we're to a point where we can continue this matter. Does any one of the board members want to move accordingly?
Mr. Chair, this is Chip Welch. I will move to continue.
Okay, is there a second?
This is Neil Gehring. I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor of continuing this matter to October 13th signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much. I think we made some headway here today. Matter will be continued. It will be rescheduled for October 13th, and we'll see what comes of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Sure.
We've been on for an hour. We still have our Granville Fire Department Elevator Division case. Does anyone need a break at this point? Nick, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay, all right. Well, then let's move on to the case that was first on our docket, scheduled for 8:30. It's an elevator division case. It's case number 20-0109. It deals with the firehouse, Granville's Fire Department, located in Granville. Someone may need to mute. The elevator adjudication number is noted on our docket. Let's have an introduction of the parties, beginning first with the representative on behalf of the fire department. Susan, didn't you say we had the parties for the 8:30?
Yes, they were there. Chip's here.
Is Preston Walk there available?
For those of you who are attending by phone, if you wanted to hit *6, you will unmute yourself. Otherwise, you are muted at this point.
Okay, is Mr. Updike available?
I am.
Okay. Gentlemen, do we want to call the next case, the next Columbus case, and wait till Mr. Walk reappears? It's going to put Mr. Updike in a position where he's going to have to hang around, however.
Mr. Chair, I mean, I don't know that that's necessary. I mean, there's no conditions, no.
Right. No objection from the division?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, let's call the case then. I already did call the case. I did ask if anybody on behalf of the appellant. Susan, our board executive secretary, thought that there may have dropped off, but in any event, the case is called. Mr. Updike, formally for the record, will you state your full name, spell your last name, and the capacity by which you're here on behalf of the elevator division?
Charles Updike, UPDYKE, Chief Elevator Inspector for the state of Ohio.
Thank you. Would you stand, raise your right hand, and Nick, would you administer an oath?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Chip, you have the floor.
This is a simple one. It's a new fire department township station. The owner is seeking a variance on the building corridor lighting. The elevator code requires that the lighting be on anytime the elevator is operational. In this particular case, it goes up to, I guess, the sleeping quarters, and they use a red light option. I guess is good for night vision. So they want the option to put the corridor lights on a snap switch, which I'm not opposed to because the fire department's not going to be using this lift in emergencies or anything like that. It's going to be more for tours and things like that. So that snap switch would be on the on position when they're using the lift. It is a Lula, it's not a traditional elevator, so it has service recall or anything like that. It's just basically for the people with physical disabilities. And I have no objections or conditions. And the fire department did submit a letter stating basically what I just stated, that they're going to have it on a snap switch and they're utilizing red lighting during the nighttime hours.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Updike?
No.
If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Chip, I'll let you do that. I mean, this particular case, I don't necessarily see any hardship, but it's pretty darn light there from my point of view. So I may be the lone one on this one too, but you know, it's not installing a light is not necessarily a hardship. It's just something that they want to do. So.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals, case number 20-0109. The appellant is Granville Fire Department. For the premises, Granville Fire Department at 500 South Main Street, Granville, Ohio, 43023. The appellee is Charles Updike, the Chief Elevator Inspector for the Division of Industrial Compliance and the State of Ohio, and adjudication order number E2020-66524. I move to grant the variance as requested.
Okay, that motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair, Neil Gehring.
Motion's been made. It's been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Chip, was that a nay?
Yes, I
Okay.
agree with Mr. Began. It's a brand new construction. Put the damn light in.
The light is, it's not on continuous with the operation of the elevator. It's
Good
just,
afternoon,
they're able to turn it
Preston.
off because I guess it shares a common room with the sleeping quarters.
Okay, well, in any event, the variance
It passes.
carries 3-2.
Right.
We stand adjourned. Chip, thanks for hanging
You're
by.
welcome.
It just happened that way.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now?
is that Mr. Walk?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Sorry, I was
we're-
unable to mute myself on the computer, unmute myself
Well,
from the
were
computer.
you
so I
able,
called in.
you able to listen in?
Yes, I was.
Okay, well, the variance is granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's move to the next case before we take a short break. This is a Columbus matter. It's case number 20-0091. Deals with the premises located at 2500 Medary Medary Avenue, located in Columbus, and Columbus's adjudication is noted on the docket. I do know that presumably we still have Chief Sanders and Mr. Ghosh present. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Okay, and then who is appearing on behalf of the appellant?
This is Jennifer Gilmore with AECom.
Okay, and on the attendee list, I have Abby David, Aaron Neely, Matt Kodak, and Dan Eifert. Are any present?
Yes, Aaron Neely is here.
Abby David is here.
And Dan Eifert is also here.
So Matt Kodak would not be, correct?
Correct.
Matt is not currently. He can join us if needed.
Okay, well, that'll suffice for purposes of appearance. If each of you would stand, that'd be Miss Gilmore, Miss David, Miss Neely, and Mr. Eifert, and Mr. Ghosh, Chief Sanders. Nick will administer the
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, very well. Who's going to present for the appellant, at least first?
Jennifer Gilmore.
Okay, you have the floor.
Okay, I'm gonna please share my screen here. All right, is everyone seeing?
Yes.
Not quite yet. Hold on a second. Okay.
Okay, so this case is actually about the property at 1350 Alum Creek Road, which Bridgeway Academy purchased last year. The address on Medary is their current location. So until recently, building was in use by DeVry Academy and Chamberlain College of Nursing. You can see on this plan, this is Alum Creek Drive. This is US Route 70. just to give you an overview of the site and the building. It is about 100,000 square feet on the main level. It does have a portion of basement level that daylights and has direct exiting from the building. So Bridgeway is planning a renovation to use this building as a pre-K through 12 educational and therapy center for children with autism and other disabilities. They have small class sizes that average about 8 to 12 students and a total student to staff ratio of 1 to 1. So this building, it's type 2B construction. It's fully sprinklered. As part of this renovation, the fire alarm system is being upgraded to voice notification, and it has double the number of required egress points, which you can see I've put black arrows here. So as part of the renovation, they are proposing to reuse most of the building will just get kind of cosmetic upgrades, and about 16,000 feet will have kind of more extensive renovations in different pockets of the building. The biggest area of this, these are existing faculty offices that will be turned to classrooms. And you can see that here. This is the proposed plan. There was a renovation in 1999, kind of at the main main entrance area. They added an addition here and in the back. As part of that renovation, the building was granted a unlimited area variance. So that was for B occupancy for higher education. With this new use to education and a little bit of daycare use, it's over the allowable area, and we need to separate it, provide fire separation. As we kind of dug into this, we plan to put a firewall along here, and then it would continue in the lower level. Due to the existing construction, it's not possible for us to separate it with a single firewall without doing extensive renovations to the building to redesign the structural system. We did also look into doing a double firewall, which, because we need egress in this area, caused a pinch point that I can kind of detail for you if needed. But that's kind of the overview. What we're proposing is, instead of a 2-hour firewall, to provide a 3-hour fire barrier with 3-hour opening protection. And just to further illustrate the exiting, we're required to have 4 exits on the lower level, and we have actually 2 exits, and we have double that. On the main level, we're required to have 4 and have more than double that, and they're distributed throughout the perimeter of the building.
Okay, questions of Ms. Gilmore?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Mr. Ghosh?
Mr. Chair, we are in support of this request. We realize that the existing conditions do not allow them to build a firewall, but they are providing a 3-hour fire barrier, and Ms. Gilmore has said that the egress far exceeds what the code would require, and it's an existing building. So we are in support. Just to, as a point of clarification, if the address could be 1350 Elm Creek Road, that would probably be, that would be a big help in terms of record keeping.
Is that something, is that a request of the board, though?
We can put it as a condition.
The order was written for 1350 Elm Creek Road, but somehow it got to be their current address.
Okay, all right.
I'm not exactly sure how that happened.
Oh yeah, we could, that could be a condition then. That's fine.
And what's that address again, just so that I can make sure I document it here?
Thank you, Mr. Vegan. It's 1350 Alum Creek Road, ALUM Creek, Creek Road.
Okay, let's hear from the chief.
Columbus Fire is in full support of the request.
Okay, thank you. Comments or sentiments or questions of members of the board of any of the parties?
I have a question. From my understanding is a firewall, in a case like this, you'd have a firewall, which would mean the code would require that if part of the building collapsed, it would remain. Or you could have two walls. And the main difference between that and a barrier is that the barrier would, would not necessarily remain in place. It could collapse. Is that correct, Mr. Ghosh?
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Mr. Smith, yes, that is correct.
So, and the proposed wall is basically a metal stud wall with 2 or 3 layers of drywall, I think. Why wouldn't you consider, more of a concrete masonry wall, which would be more substantial and might survive standing if there was a fire on one side?
There is an existing wall in place, which would need to be demolished. It would be about 100 feet of wall that would need to be demolished and rebuilt with block wall if we were to do that.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
please.
The building is fully sprinklered.
But I mean, I guess the main point is it's too large of a building for educational use. So that's why it's being divided up.
That is true.
Even though it's sprinkled. I mean.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, this is Paul Began, and not that, Mr. Smith needs to necessarily, agree with what I have to say, but generally speaking, if the wall's a 3-hour wall, it doesn't matter what it's made of. It is to prevent the spread of fire from one side or to the other. If the fire gets to the point where there's a building collapse, I would assume by that point everyone has been evacuated from there and the fire department is on site and dealing with the situation. That 3-hour threshold it's pretty long.
Mr. Chair, this is Neil Gehring. I'm fine with the proposed variance with the 3-hour barrier.
I am as well, Mr. Chair. Chip Welch.
Brad?
Yeah, I'm okay.
And so am I.
Just asking a question, I guess.
Hey, Paul, on your conditions, it's alum, A-L-U-M as in Mary.
Okay. Well,
it's also Alum Creek Drive, not road.
Okay, well, I've switched those. I'm not going to switch them on the screen here because I'm throwing up a PDF there, but I have noted those changes. So, Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'll read through some proposed conditions.
Yep, please do.
Variance is conditioned upon the following. Number 1, the address of the building shall be listed as 1350 Alum Creek Drive. Number 2, a 3-hour fire resistance rated fire barrier shall be provided between the 2 fire areas. The fire barrier shall be designed and installed in accordance with the 2017 Ohio Building Code, Chapter 7, and be maintained in accordance with the Ohio Fire Code. Number 3, all penetrations and opening protectives shall be designed and installed in accordance with Chapter 7 of the 2017 Ohio Building Code and maintained in accordance with the Ohio Fire Code. Number 4, this variance is granted based on the use, construction, occupant load, square footage, and level of activity identified on the approved construction documents, including the maintenance of all building systems and any conditions required herein.
Comments from Ms. Gilmore or others?
I don't have any further comments.
Okay, Mr. Ghosh and or Chief Sanders?
Mr. Chair and Mr. Began, we're fine with it. Thank you.
Okay.
Columbus Fires.
Go ahead, Mr. Chief.
I'm sorry, I'm saying Columbus Fires accepted. Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. For Board of Building Appeals case number 20-0091, the appellant is Helping Hand Center for Special Needs, DBA Bridgeway Academy, for the premises 1350 Elm Creek Drive, Columbus, Ohio. The appellee is Amit Ghosh, building official for the City of Columbus Building Department, and adjudication order number A/O 2020-011. I move to grant the variance subject to the conditions previously read in the record and noting the no objection of the building and fire officials.
Okay, that motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair, Neil Gehring.
Whoops.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Gilmore and Mr. Ghosh and Chief Sanders. Unless there's anything further, we'll take a short recess and adjourn this hearing.
Thank you.
All right, let's just,
Thank
just take
you.
a couple minutes then and we'll go off the record. Well, when you take a break, it's worth just. I'm back. I see Neil on the phone, so we can wait, and I don't know if Paul's on or not. Oh, I don't
Paul is
see
on.
Brad. And Brad that's an empty chair there, so we'll wait on him.
Paul is on, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Brad, you're back, right?
Yes, I'm back.
Chip's at his desk, Neil's at his desk, Paul's on. Mr. Ghosh, Chief Sanders, are you available?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and are the parties,
Chair.
is Mr. Is it Mr. Tate? No, it'd be, yeah, is Mr. Tate here available?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and anybody appearing with you today?
Rance Rizzuto.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we will call the case then. Let the record reflect it is 9:56. We'll call this case that was actually set for 9 o'clock. Appreciate your indulgence on our docket. It's a Columbus matter. It's case number 20-0089, and it deals with the premises located at 1408 Oakland Park Avenue in Columbus, and the City of Columbus's adjudication order number is noted on the docket. Let's have an appearance of the parties, beginning with the appellant. State your full name if you would, spell your last name and the capacity by which you're here in a representative way for the appellant. We'll have the introductions of the building and fire official for the City of Columbus, and we'll have an oath administered and we'll begin. Mr. Tate?
Yes.
I need you to enter your appearance by stating your name, spell your last name, and the capacity by which you're here as well, and we'll do the same with Mr. Rizzuto.
Yeah, my name is Jim Tate. I am architect for this project presenter.
Okay. And your colleague?
Rance Rizzuto. Rizzutto. Also with us is Terry DeFrancisco.
Okay.
And could you please repeat the address you listed? That did not sound like our address.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yep. My apologies. It's 2643 North High Street.
Thank you. And Terry DeFrancisco is here as well.
Hello. My last name is D-E-F as in Frank, R-A-N-C-I-S-C-O.
Okay, very good. And Mr. Ghosh?
Ahmed Ghosh, G-H-O-S-H, City of Columbus.
And Chief Sanders?
Scott Sanders, S-A-N-D-E-R-S, Battalion Chief of Columbus Fire, Assistant Fire Marshal.
Okay, all the parties that have been identified and have entered their appearance, if you'd stand, raise your right hand, and our court stenographer will administer an oath.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
I do.
Okay, very good. Who's going to present? Is that you, Mr. Tate?
Yeah, that'd be correct.
Okay, we'll hear from you. You have the floor.
All right. Can I show my screen?
Yes, you can.
Can I?
Next to your picture, you should see a button that says share.
All right. This is a small community center renovation project. And the issue is the occupant load, loose seating versus fixed seating occupancy count. This small community theater really needs to have a loose seating arrangement for multi-purpose reasons. There is theater presentations in this area, but they also need to have these seats pulled away in order to get access to the ceiling area to change lighting as required for each types of productions. They also need to pull away the seats for educational clinic type events where they actually break up into groups, spread out, and do little clinical educational things. Sometimes they do these educational things from the platform and they bring the seats back in place. So the issue becomes, once you have loose seating, you have to do the occupancy count by area. And once we do that by area, our loose seating right now is 54, but if we have to go by area, it pushes it up to 163 occupants. Obviously, that pushes us into having to sprinkler this facility, and construction renovation costs for this project was $12,000, and we estimated that the cost to include a sprinkler system, which require a whole new water line to this building, total cost would be about $46,000. It's like over 3 times the cost of the project. So to offset the need to do sprinklering, we have added additional fire safety measures beyond the code. This tenant space would require 2 exits. We have 5 exit discharge doors, and from the actual theater presentation area, you can see 4 of the exit doors. The travel distance, maximum travel distance is 200 feet, and well, the code allows us 200 feet, sorry, but our maximum travel distance, which is from this platform to the nearest exit, is 65, so we're way under the travel distance. And because we have so many exits, obviously our egress capacity is good for 950 occupants. So also we're separated from the adjacent tenant by fire rated assembly, fire barrier wall right here. That's my presentation.
Questions of Mr. Tate?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't know if I have questions. I mean, the big issue with this particular one, it's hard to artificially say, hey, this is what the occupancy is, and because there's no way to enforce it. We could say, hey, here's what the occupancy is. We don't need sprinklers, but then we have a situation where, you know, this could open up as a bar. It's an A2 use group. This could open up as a bar and could be packed with, 200 people in there, and City of Columbus wouldn't know about it because there's no change of use. They wouldn't have made any changes to it. So that's the difficulty of this particular one. And I'm sure we hear from Mr. Ghosh and the chief on this one, but, might be better, in my opinion, to let's not artificially set an occupant load. Let's realize, hey, there may be more people in this space than is anticipated, and do a variance to the sprinklers with some conditions. I think that might be a better approach, and maybe have Mr. Tate respond to that.
Assuming no further questions from members of the board, or any questions from members of the board, let's hear from Mr. Ghosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Beegan's already stated the situation very, very well. So all I can say is I'm afraid I can't speak in support of this appeal, and I've let Mr. Tate know that.
Chief Sanders?
Columbus Fire is in agreement with Mr. Ghosh. We too are not in favor of the request.
Okay, questions of either Mr. Ghosh or Chief Sanders by members of the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Paul Beegan, Mr. Ghosh and Chief. Are there any conditions that could be put in place that would allow you to support a variance for no sprinklers in here, assuming that we kept the occupant load? As I look at this particular building, if this was sandwiched between two buildings and a huge long bowling alley, 150 or 134 feet long, I would be concerned. But the fact that this is on a corner, and a third of the building is extended to the back, he's got full fire department access. I think egress from this is going to be easily managed with appropriate alarm systems and exit lighting and horn strobes. My opinion, I think we can achieve a level of safety that would satisfy me. I'm just asking if there are any conditions to that would be satisfactory to you or not.
I guess that's directed to Mr. Ghosh and or Chief.
Hi, I was wondering if it was okay if we spoke a little bit on our space and just sort of the desired outcome and why we'd want that, is just for some context.
Just hold on a second. The question was really posed by Mr. Beegan to Mr. Ghosh and the Chief about what conditions, if any, they would consider. I just don't, we haven't heard from, and then I'll let you speak.
Thank you.
Chief Sanders here. Fire doesn't really want to budge. If they want to go to 99 people, they need a fully sprinklered institution. That would be where we would budge if they added the sprinkler system.
Okay. Mr. Ghosh?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be open. Sometimes we do that to a position where they take some time that the board may grant a year, 2 years, 3 years to sprinkler it. But as Mr. Beegan's pointed out, this is a change of occupancy. So it's going to an A2 use from this point onwards. So I could be open to a suggestion like that, but no sprinklers in perpetuity will not be something that I would be comfortable with.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure exactly who was speaking there. That might have been Ms. Francisco. Who is that correct?
That's correct. Terry DeFrancisco. Right. Thank you. Just context too, not that it would determine any difference, but just so you have a sort of a framework of what we're building here in Columbus. We've been running as an institution since 2016, and we've been in a couple buildings so far, working actually fairly closely with the fire department and arson, where we have some relatives. And part of the issue here is that we're actually running a boutique theater that doesn't want to go ever above a certain amount of seats. So just so you have context, we're not growing a larger space. I think in both places that we've been in, primarily the last of which was West Broad Street, we were there for about 3 years, and that occupancy was 75, I believe. And that's actually a prime number for us. And we had a fully working D6 bar in that space, and that occupancy was never gone over. So just context of the kind of art form that we do, and it's a small boutique comedy theater and training center. Our classes are usually around 16 individuals, and our audiences typically hold somewhere between 50 and 65 people. That's where we want it to be. It's a Chicago-style institution where the boutique is sort of part of the landscape. You want it to be a smaller, more intimate activity. So we'd never want to grow beyond a certain number. Just so there's context of what we make and where we've already run in Columbus, we've never had a problem staying under that number and running consistently. We do not-for-profit scholarship work and work with audiences, but we always hit max capacity and stop. Or fall very much under that because it's sort of the style that we go for here, rather than like an Ohio theater type of space.
And this is Rance Rizzuto. Is it okay if I speak as well?
Please.
Within the last 2.5 years that we were at 894 West Broad Street, we also have set up practices with our staff of making sure that those maxes were met. The way our space was broken down, our lobby had a max occupancy of 24, our theater space had a max occupancy of 74, and the kitchen space had an occupancy as well. Excuse me. And we had practices set up with our staff already that they've been trained on of checking the number of people coming in, not just the audience members, but the total amount, including staff and performers for the night. So again, keeping those numbers low is what we're looking for. We want the 99 just for the sake of the full building, but the actual amount that would be in the theater space would be in that 54. Just the flexibility of chairs would help us as we transition from weekend shows to weekday classes back and forth, as well as the access to the equipment.
Yes, we run as a training center 4 days a week, and as a theater usually 3 nights a week. So it's just a flex space, basically.
Thank you.
Okay, questions or comments by members of the board?
Mr. Chair, this is Mr. Began. Just a quick comment, just to follow up kind of as I led into this. I appreciate understanding how the theater plans to operate. I just want to let them know that, you know, it really doesn't matter, because you could put 200 people in there and there's no enforcement, right? It's not like the building department comes in on Saturday night to see how many people are in there. It just doesn't happen. And the fire department, as wonderful as the Columbus Fire Department is at doing regular inspections, you know, at best you're going to get an annual inspection unless there's some type of complaint. So you can pack this building with as many people as you want and nobody would know. And that's what our concern is, despite you telling us how you plan to use it.
Any other comments or sentiments by members of the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Chip Welch. I can't support the variance at this point.
Let me ask the appellant. Obviously, the concern is how to enforce the occupancy. Does the appellant have any thoughts on how that assurance could be given to us beyond what's been testified to thus far?
Well, Mr. Chair, this is Mr. Began again. Let me throw out one more thing. At this point, I would be probably unwilling to support a variance without the support of Mr. Ghosh or Columbus Fire. That being said, I do believe that Mr. Ghosh opened a little bit of a door for the appellant if they wish to look at it, saying, okay, is it possible for them, within a couple of years to be able to do some additional fundraising to get the sprinkler system and allow them to operate in the meantime with a certain set of conditions, augmented fire alarm or something that Mr. Ghosh and Columbus Fire would support to instead of just saying, hey, no. I do believe that Columbus is open. So we may want to look at a continuance if the appellant is open to considering those options.
Right, but I didn't hear that same potential light at the end of the tunnel from Chief Sanders. I heard that from Mr. Ghost. I'm not sure that you're going to get Columbus Fire on board. Chief, do you have anything to say on that?
Columbus will be willing to listen. We'd have to talk offline. I'd have to talk offline with Mr. Ghosh. But
Okay.
we would be willing to.
That you wouldn't need to do that today. If the suggestion would be, we'll hear from the appellant, is that maybe this matter will be continued, allow the appellant to huddle among themselves, and then to confer with Columbus Fire and Columbus Building to see whether or not there's a pathway towards getting your approval, which gives us the comfort level we apparently need to move forward. Let me ask the appellant. It sounds to me that if we were to deliberate today, we would vote in favor of upholding the adjudication order, which means no variance would be granted. Mr. Tate and others, would you object to this matter being continued to allow you to regroup?
I feel we probably should defer to Mr. Tate. We don't know a ton about this, but just as a side note, we're also incredibly damaged by COVID-19 currently, and we are non-operational and have been since March. So any further fundraising on our behalf is going to be incredibly difficult, if not impossible. So this is a rental space. It's very challenging as is. We've been through an ordinance already. I think right now our budget is maxed out, but I don't know about time, and maybe he has more opinion on that.
Mr. Tate?
Well,
I don't need you don't need to necessarily, I don't put you on the spot to have to express opinions. The question really would be, would a continuance to allow your group to develop some conversations further with Columbus Building and Columbus Fire make sense? Or do you prefer that the board deliberate on the adjudication order and the variance request today?
Well, let me ask this. I think the initial question was, there's a possibility for variance if we promise to install a sprinkler system within a certain amount of time, like 2 years.
Well,
is that correct?
Mr. Ghosh suggested that as a prospect that building might consider viewing favorably. Initially, Chief Sanders didn't express that, but indicated that Columbus Fire would be, quote, willing to listen, which tells me that he wouldn't give that consent or his comfort level today. He'd have to vet it, which would require you to create a dialogue with Columbus Fire. Am I correct, Chief?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And so, Mr. Tate, I think this board is probably, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, although most of them have already spoken, certainly Mr. Welch and Mr. Began have, that without Columbus Fire and Buildings support, they would be voting to uphold the adjudication order if it was put to them today. Correct, Mr. Began and Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let me do this. Neil, where are you?
I could not support the variance either without Columbus Fire City's, approval.
Okay, so Mr. Tate, that's the 3 that would uphold the adjudication order, board of 5. So, but we're happy to put it to deliberation and a vote today, or we would be willing to continue the matter and allow you some time to create that dialogue with Columbus Building and Columbus Fire.
Okay, well, we'll continue the dialogue. I need to review with the tenant, and we'll do that. Okay. And if we change our mind, we'll let you know.
Very good. We're almost complete then. Is there a motion to continue this matter by 1 or more members of the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Chip Welch, I move to continue.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair, Neil Gehring.
Okay, all those in favor of continuing this matter signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, appreciate your time and effort. We obviously didn't get to your intended result today, but there's still some light at the end of the tunnel. The matter will be continued, and this hearing is concluded. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Nick, are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay, members of the board, or do you want to continue with the next hearing?
Yes.
Yep. Sure. Okay, we're going to call case number 20-0090. That is dealing with the premises that I had incorrectly mentioned before, which is located at 1408 Oakland Park Avenue in Columbus. And Columbus's adjudications noted on the docket. I know that we have Mr. Ghosh from Columbus Building as the CBO present. We have Battalion Chief Sanders present on behalf of Columbus Fire. Who do we have that's present on behalf of the appellant? Okay, do we?
Pedro's Askedum is here as the owner.
State your name again, please. I'm sorry.
This is Pedro's.
Representative, owner, consultant.
Okay, you're talking the same. So this is Mr. Jang and Mr. How do you say that?
Askedum, yes.
Askedum. Okay, so we have both of you on the present, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, I'd ask both of you, Chief Sanders and Mr. Ghosh, to stand, raise your right hand. Nick, would you administer the oath?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, we will hear from either Mr. Jang or Mr. Askedum, or both. On the floor.
This is Young Jang. I'll be the one presenting.
Okay.
Okay. Let me give you a brief history about where we come from. This building was originally constructed as a single-family home buildings with a typical ceiling height of 7 feet in the basement and the steel beam height of 6'4" in the basement. This is even as the current code is still acceptable, a standard here. In 2008, the owners submitted a building permit application to the city to change it from a single-family home to a business office B use, including using of the basement with these kind of conditions. Now, during that construction period, during the permit, a new steel beam is added into the basement with the same height and the same clearance. The ceiling height did not change, and that was approved, and the permit was issued, and construction keep on going. And then after the inspection, a certificate of occupancy was issued in 2013. So this building was occupied as a business office for 2 years. Now in 2015, the owner submitted another change of occupancy to the city to change it from business use to the daycare use, e-use group, including the same condition in the basement, the ceiling height and the beam height. And after the plan review, city issued a permit, a building permit in 2017 for the change of occupancy. However, the owner can never get the reasonable bid within the budget due to the design. So the building permit expired 1 year after that. The owner, in 2019, the owner submitted another application for the same change of occupancy from the business office to the e-use group again, but this time with a different design approach. And after the plan review process, the city again issued a building permit in 2019, including use of the basement with the same existing condition. Now, after receiving this permit, the owner finally can get a contractor to begin the construction. And during the construction in July 2020, the city inspector failed the inspection, citing the code violation for these existing conditions in the basement, not meeting the minimum requirement of 7 foot 6 inches for ceiling height and 6 foot 8 inches for steel beam height, and the stairway entrance head clearance. The owner subsequently received an adjudication order and citing this condition as hazardous condition to be corrected. Now we are here to seek relief from this requirement based on the following reasons. Number one, section 107.2.1 OBC, Ohio Building Code, stated that a plan approval is a license for the owner to proceed with the project according to the approved plans. Now, based on the description above, the building has been issued such a license 3 times with these kind of existing condition in the basement. And it also has been authorized to occupy as an office building for 2 years with the same condition. Please note that the code requirement for ceiling height for B and E are the same. They are the same requirement. So the owner was led to believe that these existing condition was acceptable to the city of Columbus, and the project was authorized to proceed as approved per the approved plan. Now, if the owner was informed of this unacceptable condition in any of the plan review process, he might not have invested time and the money to proceed with the project, knowing that the cost of raising the basement ceiling and the beam height will be way beyond any budget that he can come up with. Now, at near the end of this project, the owner is subject to this possibility of losing all the money he invested it, and then the project with the project altogether. So, number 2, according to the Building Code commentary issued by International Building Code Council, the primary concern for requiring the minimum ceiling height and protruding object height was 2 primary concerns. One is for air circulation, and the other one is for psychological needs for spaciousness in a living space. Now, the basement is designed to be wide open. If you could, as you can see from the floor plan I provided, there's no wall or door to separate these classrooms. It's a wide open space, and it also has code compliance supply and return air systems. So air circulation should not be a problem. And secondly, the most occupants in the basement are little children. So the psychological needs for spaciousness should not be a problem either. Based on the code analysis here, we do not feel like the minimum ceiling height should be considered a serious hazard that require costly corrections. Especially they are only 6 inches and 4 inches below the requirement. And number 3 is regarding the existing stairway entrance headroom and the provision of change of occupancy in section 3408.3 Ohio Building Code stated clearly that existing stairway in an existing structure are not required to comply with the requirement of the new stairway as outlined in 1011, 1014, and 1015. Section 1011 is about the head height clearance. The approved plan clearly showed a stairway in the basement is existing, so therefore the existing stair in the basement shall not be required to meet the code requirement on the section 1011 OBC for the stair headroom requirement. So based on these 3 reasons, we are seeking the variance to be granted by the board for not have to meet this minimum requirement. Thank you.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Yang?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Paul Began. My first question is regarding to previous approvals, although I don't know if this has any bearing on what my position would be, but you know, was the beam or the ceiling height or the stair headroom height ever disclosed as part of the approvals for any of the other times that they received approval? And Mr. Jang, you should know, you know, obviously if drawings are submitted and you're showing floor plans and you're asking for a change of occupancy and you're not changing anything on the ceiling, well, you would not necessarily need to submit ceiling plans showing that, and approval may be granted without knowledge of that there is a low ceiling height area if it had not been disclosed to the plan reviewer. So that is the gist of my question: is was those ceiling height issues disclosed and part of the approval that had received on any of the previous approvals?
In 2000, this is Young Jan. In 2008, when you changed it from the residential to the business use, there was a new beam and the columns are added in the basement, and that design was specifically approved. And also,
was it specifically on those drawings shown as a low ceiling height area?
Yeah, yeah, I believe so. I mean, I didn't see the plan back then.
Well,
but
then,
it was added.
Then you really can't answer that question. If you did not see the plans, you do not know if those construction documents had indicated a low ceiling height area. Is that correct?
That's correct. But it went through the building inspection process.
In the building, this is Pedro's the owner. In the original building plans, it was submitted and approved with the ceiling height indicated, and also the depth of the beams, etc., that were supporting the columns that were supporting the beams.
Yeah, the Mr. Owner probably can answer that question.
I thought I just, did you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I have a question. I'm looking at a building plan right now. Is this the plan that was submitted before, or is this when was this plan submitted that shows a 7-foot ceiling height and a 6-foot 4-inch beam height? When was that submitted? I'm looking at it right now. This shows all that information. It's sheet number 3.
Yeah, this is Young Chang. That is the city asked us to clarify the height. It wasn't shown in the original submittal because it was the existing condition. We did not even mention that on the drawing.
So you're documenting an existing condition at this point. It looks like you're putting in a new beam. Okay.
Okay, any further questions of Mr. Zhang? If not, let's hear from Mr. Ghosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The plans that were approved did not, in 2017, we went back and checked, did not show ceiling height and height below obstructions. And also, it's important to us that it had a B use approved before in 2008 or 2013. But now there's going to be children in the basement who would need to be rescued and would need a fire department personnel probably to intervene if there's an event. And to Mr. Young's commentary about air circulation, the ceiling height, whole aspect of ceiling height, minimum ceiling heights in the building codes also predicated upon the heat plume and how far it comes down in a compartment fire. And we believe we can't support this appeal because we know that the ceiling height is low, and with the beam there, the heat plume will come down even further. And with 6'4", it's not very good for the B use will be 100 square feet per person, whereas E use will be 20 square feet per person. So the occupant load will increase in the basement, and it'll be that much harder to rescue children that may possibly be there. So Columbus Building is not in favor of supporting the appeal.
All right, before I entertain questions of Mr. Ghosh, let's hear from Chief Sanders.
Columbus Fire agrees with Mr. Ghosh. Our biggest contention is the lower height of the ceiling. That's great for the pupils that he speaks about, but if we have a fire, we're going to be grown men and women, for that matter, with turnout gear on and helmets, and that's an issue. So we are not in favor.
Okay, questions of Mr. Ghosh or Chief Sanders, members of the board?
Yes, probably a question for Chief Sanders, and this might be a little bit leading. Can you tell me what it's like having to go down into a basement that may be filled with smoke?
Yes, a basement fire is our biggest fear of an interior firefighting action, because as we descend a stairwell with fire below us, the most heat, the most smoke in the structure acts as a chimney. We're going through to get down to the lower level. So we've actually changed our tactics in the fire service in the last 3 to 5 years. That we'll put water through a basement window and knock down the fire, and only then will we send our personnel down the stairwell because of the peril and the danger of descending a stairwell through smoke and fire.
Any further questions of either the chief or the building official? Any questions, further questions of Mr. Yang?
No question.
Okay. Well, you don't have any questions. All right. Let's. Where are we as a board? Who wants to start?
I'll start. I mean, without the city approving it and listening to the fire department, it's be very hard to approve a variance on my part right now.
Thank you.
This is Neil Gehring. I'm not in favor of approving the variance without the the fire official and the building official.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would agree with my colleagues. A little bit difference when you have a basement as a business use, or maybe 1 or 2 people, able-bodied adults that know their way around and are familiar with the surroundings to be able to evacuate. in the situation where we have children there, if for any reason the adult monitor is incapacitated, those children need to be able to be rescued by fire department personnel. As the chief pointed out, descending into a basement with a stairwell in a fire situation is difficult, even under the best conditions, with nobody down there, with them knowing that there are children down there and having to deal with head height issues, wearing their full gear. I think it puts not only the children at peril, but it would put the fire department at peril as well too. So I cannot support this. This variance.
Thank you. Chip?
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, Mr. Yang and Mr. Agnew, look, it looks like unless there's anything further, we're probably going to move to uphold the adjudication order. But I'll let you make comment or for purposes of the record.
Yeah, so this is Mr. Asgadam. Just wanted to, first of all, thank you for listening to our case. The fact that a 4-inch or a 6-inch and fire prevention, I'm not a fire marshal or fire educator on the fire hazards and preventions. Are we, the city did not raise the question of fire in the basement. They raised the issue of ceiling heights. Now, if the fire prevention is to be a case where we are coming short in the basement, there's the ceiling height really is the underlying issue here.
All right, I think that's certainly a question that I'd put to Mr. Ghosh.
Mr. Chair, it's the ceiling height that makes a difference in terms of how far the heat plume goes. Shorter the ceiling, lower the heat plume, and lower the possibility of search and rescue. And these are all intertwined, and I would be on record. I even had the plan examiner talk to Mr. Yang about providing a limited area sprinkler system in the basement so that the rescuers will have more time. We made some offers, but we haven't, they were not very receptive to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Gosh, on that one, I just wanted to, I made a decision. I will take responsibility for that. Mr. Young did pause that to me because, again, the question that I was coming back to is, you know, what I just asked, the fact that, you know, if we're looking for limited fire prevention method, you know, is that really answering the problem of the ceiling height? That was the question that the answer that I was not clear on.
Yeah. Well, and Mr. Chair, this is Mr. Began. If I could give a little bit further add on to Mr. Ghosh's explanation. When Mr. Ghosh talks about heat plume, this is something that I know and understand, right? So hot air rises, smoke rises, right? So when it goes up and you have an obstruction in the ceiling, like a beam or something, you are now forcing that smoke and that heat farther down into the room. So that is the lowering of that heat plume when you already have a low ceiling height. Now, so if you can imagine, now that heat plume is down at the point where it's where most people stand, right? So, and that is the most dangerous part of a fire, is that heat plume. Right now, the way that building, from the floor plans that I could see, that there is a door at the bottom of the basement steps. It is open at the top. So fire department personnel going down those stairs and opening that door is now interjecting oxygen into that already low heat plume, and it would cause a chimney effect up that stairwell where there'd be zero visibility, of which those fire department personnel now have to do their search and rescue, not aware that there's something lower that they could hit their heads on as well. So is the ceiling height is related to this fire issue in a very large way, and I just wanted to give you some additional explanation so that you understand what our concerns are and what we're thinking about with a building being safe, especially for children.
Anything further, Mr. Axelman?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. I think the board has expressed its sentiments, other than me, but I would concur with my colleagues. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this is Young Jang.
Okay.
I listened to the fire situation in the basement and everything. That I wanted to say that there are possibly a couple, three options that we can do. See what you say. Number one is the limited area sprinkler system in the basement. That's one possibility. And another possibility is eliminating use of the basement altogether. That's another possibility. Would that be okay with you, with the building official?
Well, yeah. Let me pose that to Mr. Ghosh and Chief Sanders first of all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Young, can you explain? I understand the limited area sprinkler, and it will obviously keep the fire down till the rescue personnel get there. I understand that, and I may be in favor of it, and Chief Sanders will speak for himself. But what is this limited use proposal you're I haven't heard that. Maybe you can explain.
Okay. Yeah, this is Young Chang. There's a possibility we will just leave the basement alone, not using that as a daycare.
Is this something, Mr. Jang, that you and your client want to sleep on before you make that proposal?
Yeah, that's what I was proposing. Perhaps we can continue the list until next time. Let us have time to work with the building department and see which option is viable for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's really to Mr. Askedam to think, would he like this board to vote on the request before us, or continue it to keep it open to allow time to make modifications?
Yeah, I would like to continue to think about it, because the options that Mr. Young is proposing is something that we have to think through. One is the cost of introducing sprinkler system, limited it might be. What does that mean? And is that building is an existing? What kind of water line is coming into it? I think all of that has bearing on it. So we have to do some more research on that. And then if that option, then it's, the second option is basically limit our daycare business only to the first floor, which is what Young is proposing as a second option.
Chief Sanders, Mr. Ghosh, any objection to a continuance?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
No, Mr. Chair, fire has no objection.
Okay. Gentlemen of the board, any thoughts on continuing the matter?
No, I think it's reasonable. I mean,
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
support it.
All right, well, the parties agree. Is there a motion to continue?
So moved, Mr. Chair, to continue this case.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Yang, Mr. Agnesum, Mr. Ghost, Chief Sanders, the matter will be continued. Hopefully that the parties can get together and you'll receive notice from Ms. Steer of the next hearing date. There's nothing further to come on this case. We will call the next case unless the board members or Nick needs a break. That sounds like we'll move on. Okay, I'm going to call what would represent our last Columbus case for the day, which is case number 20-0082, 1625 Bethel Road is the location of the premises in question. And Columbus's adjudication is noted on the docket. Because we've had a continuous run here, we have Chief Sanders from the Columbus Fire Department, Battalion Chief Sanders from the Fire Department, and we have Mr. Ghosh as the CBO for the city present. Do we have Mr. Althouse and Mr. Jones present?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very, very good. So let me do this. Mr. Althouse, please enter your appearance by stating your name, spell your last name, and the capacity by which you're here. In this case, architect. We'll do the same thing with Mr. Jones, and we'll ask Mr. Ghosh and the chief to do the same, and I'll have an oath administered.
Okay. This is Matthew Althouse, Red Architecture and Planning. Last name spelled A-L-T-H-O-U-S-E. I am the project architect.
Mr. Jones?
My name's Kevin Jones, Jones, and I'm with P2K Enterprises.
Okay, and Mr. Ghosh?
Ahmed Ghosh, GHOSH, Chief Building Official, City of Columbus.
And Battalion Chief Sanders?
Battalion Chief Scott Sanders, SANDERS, Columbus Fire.
Okay, very good, gentlemen. If you'd stand, raise your right hand, Nick, would you administer an oath?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
I do.
Okay, Mr. Althouse, you have the floor.
Thank you. So this is a continuation from last month's discussion about an escape room called Lockology at 1625 Bethel here in Columbus. We've talked with the plans examiner and CBO and have come to a conclusion of how to handle the variance here. We went through section 411 for special amusement, kind of identified what all the requirements would be, and are willing to accept their variance to a variance against sprinklers if we provide a fire alarm. I don't know if do we want to go through the whole thing again? Do I need to refresh you guys on what we're doing? No. Okay.
Let me defer to members of the board. How do you want Mr. Althouse?
I see some head shaking.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, it just my position. I don't need you to go through it, but I'm just one board member.
I don't need you to go through it either.
Paul?
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think I'm okay. I mean, I'm familiar with enough with the project. I mean, I think at this point we've had quite a bit of testimony about it. I think if we can, help put together the conditions that match the list of agreements that the appellant has made with the city, then I think we could be on our way.
Okay, Mr. Althouse, why don't you state or set forth what you believe the conditions would be or the agreement you have with the city. We'll get confirmation from city building and fire, and we'll proceed that way.
So the agreement is to maintain our classification as a special amusement, but we were seeking a variance to eliminate sprinklers from the requirement of section 411. So we would comply with the fire detection and alarm and other section 411 requirements.
Chief?
Yes, fire's in agreement. Just as he said, as long as they are in compliance with section 411, we are satisfied.
Great. Okay. Mr. Ghosh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as long as they comply with the fire alarm, emergency voice alarm, exit markings, requirements of the, of section 411, we will be in favor of this proposal.
Okay. Is this a time when we hand this off to you, Paul?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, give me a moment to put some language together for this.
Okay.
The
fine.
words are really good, but they don't read really well.
Right.
All right, we'll put your pros to work, and we'll go off the record at this point in time, Nick.
Off the record.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Nick, let's go back on, assuming we have the parties. See Mr. Jones, I see Mr. Althouse. Presumably, Mr. Ghosh and the chief are on standby. Yep, Nick, we're back on.
Yep, well, we're on record.
Second here.
Are you putting it on the screen?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. Okay, there we go. This variance is conditioned upon the following. Number one, the tenant space shall be classified as a special amusement building use with an occupant load of less than 50 persons and listed as such on the certificate of occupancy by the building official. Number two, the fire alarm detection and notification systems shall comply with the requirements of section 411 of the Ohio Building Code inclusive. And number three, the fire alarm detection and notification systems shall be maintained as required systems utilizing the Ohio Fire Code and adopted NFPA standards. And number four, this variance is granted based on the use, construction, occupant load, square footage, and level of activity identified on the approved construction documents, including the maintenance of all building systems and any conditions required herein.
Okay, this Mr. Althouse and Mr. Ghosh and Chief Sanders, this would be the time to ask questions or comments as regards to the conditions that have been proposed.
These sound fine to me. The only comment I would have is there were no construction documents for this project. We were simply applying for a change of use, and we had a life safety plan. So if that still applies, then that's fine.
Just might be surplusage, but Mr. Ghosh?
Mr. Chair, the conditions are very good and very short and sweet. What will happen is we will tell Mr. Althouse that we need to see drawings for fire alarm, and we'll I guess we'll make it formal that you need to submit for fire alarm and the exit markings and so forth. We will need some document to proceed with the change of occupancy request.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But we can work it out. Steve Copeland will contact you.
Thank you.
Okay, and for purposes of the record, Chief?
Fire has no comments. We're satisfied.
Okay. Well, that being the case, I'd entertain a motion.
And yeah, just a kind of point of clarification, Mr. Chair, I think the term construction documents, and I just looked real quick in the building code, whether or not there's construction or not, any documents submitted to the building official in support of a change of use of what, like we have here, or as Mr. Ghosh requested, firearm documents are still considered under the building code as construction documents. So I don't think we need to necessarily modify the language in the conditions. I think generally we all understand what that means.
I would agree 100%.
That being said, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals case number 20-0082, the appellant is Kevin Jones for P2K Enterprises LLC for the premises 1625 Bethel Road, Columbus, Ohio 43220. The appellee is Nick Ghosh, building official for the City of Columbus Building Department, and adjudication order number A/O 2020-006. I move to grant the variance subject to the conditions previously read into the record and noting the no objection of the building and fire officials.
Okay, that motion's been made. Is there a second?
I will second, Mr. Chair. Chip Welch.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, the variance is granted on those four conditions. unanimously. Anything further, Mr. Aldhouse?
No, thank you.
Anything further from the city? Okay, hearing none, we stand adjourned on that hearing. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I'm glad that you took the interim time of the continuance and came to some resolution among yourselves. That would complete our docket. My understanding is that our division case that was set also for 10 o'clock, case number 20-0047, dealing with 37 West 2nd Street in Manchester, has been continued to November, although that still remains on our docket, but that's my understanding. And then for purposes also of the record, we had a Columbus case number 20-0059, dealing with the facility known as AmeriCare in Columbus, which has been continued for 90 days. So that would conclude the docket for September 29th. Yesterday, we approved minutes from our last meeting, which was September 15th. And we have on and I know that Chip has a commitment that he's got to get to and was going to. Okay, so we can select dates for November. Was it November? Is that what you had, Susan? Because I don't have. It was on yesterday's agenda, not today's.
I asked for November and December, but November's fine with me.
Okay, and I think in the future you can probably. I mean, we can do this like this, but I'm not sure that we have to. We have to select dates in sunshine. We could probably do that by email, but you might check with Ryan on that, just to, But if is everybody available to look at their calendars now?
Sure.
Sure.
Who wants to start?
I'll start
Susan,
with that.
are we still considering these? Are we going to still set dates as though we have Columbus and as though we have Ashland?
It's up to you how you want to set them, but yes, we're going to still be by remote hearings.
Okay.
My understanding.
We could set up different times if that works for people. To me, I think this works nice, right? I don't have to lose two mornings, right? I only got to lose one afternoon and one morning. So I don't mind keeping the same times if that works for everybody.
Yeah. Normally that works for me too. It just depends on the day.
Yeah.
Right. That's fine.
Well, considering that Thanksgiving is the last week of November there, maybe what would be our Reynoldsburg dates should be like 16th and 17th. I'll throw those out there.
I have to be in a final pretrial in Athens at 2 o'clock on the 16th. I could do the morning of the 16th, but I could do, I could do the 17th and 18th if that.
I can't do the 18th, but could we do the morning of the 16th and the afternoon of the 17th, or?
Yeah, that's fine. We can do 2 mornings if we really want to. I mean, that's fine too.
Either of those suggestions works for me. I just got a conflict that actually I accepted this morning. Well, it's a court order, but I hit accept, so it got on my calendar this morning, and that's for 2 o'clock on the 16th in Athens County. So, but morning of the 16th, morning of the 17th, or morning of the 16th and afternoon of the 17th work here.
That works for me.
I'm good.
So what's your pleasure? Morning, or morning and afternoon?
I guess morning. I mean, I'm 6 and 1/2 dozen or another.
Okay, morning.
Okay. Morning.
And then
the 9th.
Do we want to meet the day before the election?
I don't think, although, Chip, are you doing poll working for your
No. Pro bono is a nasty word.
Okay. The second would work here.
Actually, I cannot. I'm scheduled to be in a trial all day on the 2nd.
About the 5th.
That works.
In the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, will work in the morning, will work for me.
I can do the morning of November 5th.
What, I didn't hear what Neil said though. You said that was okay?
Yeah, the morning will work.
Okay, that works here.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, the 5th then.
All right, we've completed November. Do we dare move into December?
Nah.
You and I might not be on the board come December.
Well, what is it, 60 days? So you and I might be able to hear something before December 13th.
All right.
I don't know. I was off the board for a couple of months while I was waiting, so.
Yeah, and Chip was beside himself. He never worked harder.
That's true.
I mean, you could throw a first week of December in if you wanted.
Yeah, we could do that.
Or a second week of December.
Yeah, let's.
I start a jury trial December 8th in Athens, on that same deal, Athens County. And boy, geez, I just saw that. And I'm supposed to be in Pennsylvania, avoid daring a jury on the 10th. So the second week is a challenge for me unless we did Monday the 7th.
I'm scheduled to be in a hearing Monday morning, the 7th. What about Friday the 5th or 4th?
That's fine for me.
I could probably do that.
Or
Good with me.
Yeah, I could probably do that. That might change though.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing when you got two members falling off at the same time. Susan, is it the only time the fire official and the lawyer always fall off at the same time? And what about the engineer, architect, and the pipe? They just roll off one at a time?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then just hold the second date in December for maybe the next meeting or something?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's got to be the week of the 14th, right? I mean, we don't. The next week is Christmas week. We don't want to do it in between Christmas and New Year. So, I mean,
you could set it. You could set those dates now if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw out 14th and 15th if you want to look at those dates.
Yep. If I'm on the board, those would work.
I'll say tentatively. I got a lot on the 15th, but I might be able to move it.
Neil, you're always tentatively. We always put that adjective in front of your confirmation.
I've got a quick hearing at 1:30 on the 14th, but maybe I come in late or.
Well, you could do the morning again, like we said for November.
Morning's open, yeah.
Okay, let's try morning, 14 and 15, and then obviously if we have another issue come up, between now and our next hearing, we can email around and look to change them.
Okay, all right. So we've accomplished what we needed to in that regard. We already, as I said, approved the minutes. There is no other new business to come before the board other than to move to compensate ourselves for preparation and attendance of yesterday and today's hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we stand to be compensated for our preparation and compensation for the hearings of the 28th and today the 29th. Assuming no new business, and our next meeting will be Tuesday, August 13th, 2020 at 8:30. also remotely through Microsoft Teams, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, we stand adjourned. Nick, thanks very much for hanging with us today. And thanks, Susan. And we're down concluded.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye. See y'all later.
Girl.